What's up, everyone? I'm here in my NFL Week 2 Sleeper/Value DraftKings picks. As always, if you have not seen my Wednesday main picks video where I pretty much cover the entire slate, be sure to check that link down in the description. In this video, we'll be covering guys I think are flying under the radar or present a really good value given their price. So let's not waste any more time and get right to this week's picks. Alright, so moving into our first pick, and I have Melvin Gordon here. So I was hoping he was going to fly a little bit under the radar. He really hasn't. Looks like he's going to be pretty popular, but he still presents a really good value, especially in cash games at 7K on the nose. This is another player. I talked about it a couple times in my main picks video, how he was playing on the Monday night game, so his pricing really doesn't reflect how he played on that Monday night. So at 7K, he's probably slightly underpriced for sure. Has a really good projection out at 19 points, but I think he presents a good value because if we look at the players around him in this price point, guys like Kareem Hunt, Todd Gurley, Devontae Freeman, Ezekiel Elliott, I think Melvin Gordon probably has, not only the most favorable matchup, but probably the most clear-cut workload. Now, obviously, Elliott has a massive workload, but the game flow is really concerning to me in that particular game. The Denver defense actually does not scare me in terms of run-stopping ability, but if they can get out front and, make it to where the Cowboys have to pass, we haven't seen Ezekiel Elliott get involved in the passing game consistently enough. He did get some passes last week, which was promising, but Melvin Gordon is a guy who, more times than not, he's going to get over, 25 touches, likely at least over 20, almost every single week. And against this Miami defense, which, once again, I'm not particularly scared of. Obviously, I'm not crazy about him having to run right at and Ndamukong Suh, but I suspect they're going to go away from him as much as they can. So, honestly, Melvin Gordon is just a good play. I know a lot of people want to play Kareem Hunt in cash, and I think that's a good play. But honestly, for $200 more, we're going to get somebody who has a much more set-in-stone workload, has a favorable matchup. Philly is a pretty good run-stopping defense. It's their secondary where they actually really struggle. I talked about that in the main picks video as well. So right now, as I sit here and I'm talking, if I had to build a cash game lineup, I would play Melvin Gordon over Kareem Hunt. Todd Gurley is not particularly efficient with the ball, even though he had a good fantasy week last week against the Colts. But, he definitely salvaged it with a rushing touchdown and a couple catches as well. So I think Melvin Gordon, if you're looking in the 7.3 to 5 point or 6.5K range for a running back, I think Melvin Gordon is actually the safest play. He probably doesn't have the highest ceiling, but he's definitely the safest play in terms of cash games. Alright, so I'm actually going to toss up two tight ends on your screen at the same time here in Rob Gronkowski and Coby Fleener. And honestly, both of these guys are pretty good plays in their own right. So first off, talking about Gronkowski, the fact that I think Gronkowski is flying under the radar this week is actually pretty surprising. And I may be way wrong, but, I try to stay up to date on what people are saying on Twitter and listen to a few podcasts here and there and watch other videos and whatnot. I don't hear many people talking about him. And for a Patriots team that basically only has, three other options to throw the ball to aside from Gronkowski, this is the best spot Rob Gronkowski has been in years. Like, no joke. In 2015, everybody was playing him, but he was so expensive at the time, but it still made sense in cash. But, we didn't play him hardly at all last year. He was always hurt and, missed some games, and he had a bad 2016 year. This season, this game right here might be the best spot we see him in all year, coming off of a long week. Heading into what a lot of people like to call the Coors Field of the NFL, in the Dome there in New Orleans. This is just the best spot he's going to be in a long time. And at 6.9K, I don't know how many people are going to play him because they're going to probably say, oh, if I'm going to pay this much, I might as well go and get Cooks, or I'd rather spend a little bit less and get Hogan. Both of those are good plays. And honestly, picking somebody on the Patriots is really tough this week because I could really see any one of these guys having a huge game. I think Hogan is a pretty good play because he's going to be in the slot, and we just saw Adam Thielen shred the Saints in the slot. Obviously Cooks, you got that revenge game narrative. Gronkowski didn't have that good of a game last week against the Chiefs, but he was a couple of plays away from really having a pretty solid fantasy day. So I love Gronkowski in GPPs. I'm not going to play him in cash games. I do think that price is a bit steep in cash, and that's where Coby Fleener comes in. Fleener is actually a pretty good option in cash games, and I haven't played Fleener in a long time. I think I played him like once last year, and it didn't work out for me. So Fleener's been a guy that I've pretty much tried to avoid, but at 3.1K, he's probably one of the cheapest and most realistic options to pay down at a position, but still get exposure in cash games to this Patriots and Saints game. So I think Fleener's actually going to be pretty popular in cash games. He got involved a little bit in the offense last week. He did catch a late kind of like garbage time touchdown from Breeze, but honestly, I like the play for Fleener here. It was pretty evident the Patriots were trying to stop Travis Kelce from getting involved into the game too much. Ended up getting burned by Tyreek and Kareem Hunt and company there. So I feel like they probably may kind of lose Coby Fleener in the shuffle there. And, you know, even if Fleener at 3,100, you only need, you know, maybe 4 or 5 receptions for 50 or 60 yards and be okay with it. If he can get you 10 points at 3.1K, I'd be more than happy with that. You know, if you think Fleener is the reason you don't cash this week and, you know, he got you 10 points, then the rest of your lineup just wasn't built properly, you know. So, you know, these two guys are guys that I'm playing in completely different types of contests. In GPPs, I'm focusing on Rob Gronkowski at my tight end. And in cash, I'm definitely thinking about playing Fleener. But, you know, any Patriots and Saints, like, this is just a really, really tough game for me to pinpoint because I really don't want to play that many Saints because I don't really feel great about them, but I can still see the Saints having a big day, you know, especially filling out garbage time. The Patriots are just really tough to predict because, you know, they really only have 3 receivers, and Philip Dorsett's basically just going to be a placeholder. By the way, we're assuming they only have 3 receivers. I haven't heard yet if Danny Amendola is going to play or not, but, you know, he's dealing with a concussion and a knee injury, so I would suspect that he's not going to play. So honestly, it's just tough. I like Hogan a lot. Some people have been asking me about Chris Hogan. I like him. I just don't know if I can justify paying that price for him. But once again, he's going to be in the slot, and we just saw Adam Thielen slice and dice the Saints defense in that spot. So obviously James White's another guy that I think could get involved in the passing game, but at the same time, you know, he's not going to get any red zone or goal line work, which definitely hurts his value there as well. So this is just a headache of a game to predict. Right now, if I'm going to play any Patriots on the offensive side of the ball, it's just going to be Tom Brady. If I play Tom Brady in cash, I'll probably end up not playing any other Patriots with him, which sounds a little crazy, but I think that could work, and that may be the strategy I go. In terms of the big, you know, the big 4 in terms of quarterbacks this week, the 3 that I like the most are Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, and then Brady. I'm not a huge fan of Breeze. In terms of cash games, I really don't like Matt Ryan in cash games that much either. I'm definitely looking at Rodgers and Brady more in cash. Right now, my latest build had Aaron Rodgers. I may switch to Brady. I just don't know. I have a lot of decisions to make in the next, you know, 24 hours or so. So, you know, but these 2 tight ends should be some guys on your radar. I know I've been rambling a little bit about these 2 games, especially this Patriots-Saints, but this is just a really, really tough game to predict. So tell me, who are some of your favorite guys in this game? All right, so next up I have Terrelle Pryor, and I'm really, really entertaining the idea of stacking Pryor and Cousins in a GPP lineup this week. You know, the more I think about it, the more I like it. You know, first off, Cousins looked Pryor's way 11 times last week. Threw the ball his way 11 times. That, you know, anytime a wide receiver is getting 10+ targets, the next week I'm going to be considering him. And it was pretty evident the Redskins were trying to get the ball his way as much as possible. It was pretty obvious that Cousins wanted to throw the ball his way as much as possible. And not only that, he was trying to do it in large chunk plays. Pryor was one of the top players in the NFL last week in terms of air yards, meaning the distance on each pass thrown his way. So that means that, you know, he has big play potential. You know, it looks like Pryor is going to be matched up against Tremaine Johnson this week, which I think he has a size and speed advantage in my opinion there. So I'm not going to be turned away too much there. Tremaine Johnson definitely is an above average corner. He's coming off of a pretty good game last week as well. I believe he had an interception and a forced fumble in that game against the Colts. So I would be lying if I said this was an ideal matchup for Pryor and Cousins. You know, I think definitely the thing that scares me the most is Cousins not having any time to throw. You know, and obviously to get these long passes off, you need some time to throw. And now Aaron Donald's going to be thrown into the mix. I'm a little interested to see how much Donald's actually going to play. I don't know what kind of shape he's in. You have to think that he's going to be in pretty good shape, you know, because I'm sure he was training and everything, but, you know, he still may not, you know, play all the snaps, so that could help Cousins a little bit. I don't think the Redskins are going to be able to move the ball on the ground, so I suspect they're going to be passing a lot. So I just like Pryor in this spot. So if you don't want to stack him with Cousins, I understand, but I like it. I'm going to take a shot on those two guys in a GPP lineup. I really hope it works out. You're going to get them in a really, really low ownership because people are going to be scared away because of the Rams defense and because they didn't look on the same page last week. So I like Pryor and definitely consider him in a GPP lineup this week. All right, so next up, we're talking about a guy actually facing off against Terrelle Pryor's team here in Cooper Kupp. And this is a guy who was talked about a bunch in the preseason. It was pretty clear that the Rams and Jared Goff liked to throw to this guy. But, you know, that was the preseason. No one really had a ton of confidence in him heading into this week, week one. And honestly, he obviously showed up and played pretty well. He had 4 receptions, like 70-something receiving yards and a touchdown. Do I think that's viable week in and week out? No, but this matchup is actually pretty good for him. So there's actually a couple other players on the board I want to talk about, so that are in his price range. So first off, we have Marquis Lee. I talked about him in my main picks video at 3.8K. You know, he's one of the top. He's actually probably the top wide receiver on the Jaguars depth chart. I'll elaborate on that in a second. And then you also have J.J. Nelson. I just recently looked. I haven't seen too much on John Brown today. If John Brown does not play, J.J. Nelson is going to open up as a pretty good cash game play. If John Brown does play, J.J. Nelson is definitely going to be more of a GPP type play. So, you know, you have to kind of decide that there. So in terms of who I like the most in cash, I think it's Cooper Kupp. Honestly, it just makes the most sense to me because obviously Sammy Watkins is leaps and bounds the best wide receiver on the Rams, but you have to assume that the Redskins are going to be shadowing him with Josh Norman. So we could see Kupp kind of get lost in the shuffle. You know, I don't really know what to think of the Redskins' rushing defense currently. You know, I don't really know if they're going to be able to move the ball too much, but, you know, historically we've seen Todd Gurley not really be that efficient on the ground. So I definitely think that Kupp is actually a pretty good cash game play. Now, in terms of Marquis Lee, you know, whether or not you want to play him, you have to decide how you think this game is going to unfold. If you think this game is going to be, you know, all Titans, you think they're going to get out to an early lead, you think that the Jaguars are going to be playing from behind the majority of the game, are going to have to be passing a lot, then yes, Marquis Lee is definitely your guy. You need to play him. But if you think that the Jaguars defense is an elite defense, or at least is good enough to stop this Titans offense with Marcus Mariota and company, then you need to reconsider it because I don't suspect the Jaguars are going to want to throw the ball that much unless they have to. I really think they're going to want to force feed Leonard Fournette if they can. If they cannot and they have to play, you know, obviously from behind a couple touchdowns or 10-plus points the entire game, obviously Marquis Lee is going to be a good play. I'm personally a believer in this Jaguars defense. I don't necessarily think they're an elite defense, but I like them a lot with Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye in that secondary. I think their front seven is serviceable. So, you know, personally, I like their defense. I don't think they're elite. But for me, right now, I'm leaning more towards Cooper Kupp than I am Marquis Lee in cash. J.J. Nelson will be thrown into the mix if John Brown does not play. All 3 of these guys, you know, honestly, if you wanted to play 2 of these 3 in your cash game lineup because you're going so high end at other positions, that makes sense as well. Any of these guys makes sense to me, and I would not blame you for playing even 2 of the 3 in your lineup. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's picks. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave it a like. As always, be sure to follow me on Twitter for some periodic updates through the weekend and you know, heading down the rest of the season. Also, be sure to check my main picks video out if you have not already. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there'll be a link in the description below. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.